More businesses are opening their doors as Los Angeles moves into the orange tier. But one restaurant owner near campus says the guidelines aren't making much of a difference.
Several major companies are boycotting Georgia's newest voting law. See how these businesses are having an impact that wasn't intended.
And who let the dogs out? See how a pet trainer is making sure dogs don't suffer from separation anxiety as their owners head back to work and school. Annenberg TV News is next.
Live from USC, you're watching Annenberg TV News.
Los Angeles is now in the orange tier, one of the less restrictive tiers of the reopening plan. Good evening, I'm Lauren Hebroni reporting from Los Angeles.
And I'm Kucera, also reporting from Los Angeles. The orange tier allows hundreds of businesses countywide to welcome more people indoors. Movie theaters, restaurants, churches, and museums are now open at 50% capacity. Gyms and family entertainment centers are open at 25% capacity, while grocery stores and other retail operations are limited to 75% capacity. Restaurants in the USC Village are happily adapting to the expanded capacity.
A lot of people, when they come in, they say, oh, do you guys offer indoor dining? Like, once the indoor dining started, they made sure to ask if that was available, but not just to eat inside, but to make sure. And people usually see a table or two filled up and they'll prefer to stay outside. So we don't really have that issue of too many people eating inside.
I haven't been doing it dining. I especially I'm not vaccinated, so I'm personally not comfortable with that yet. I think things can be a little bit more spread out outside versus inside the area. There's only so much you can do.
For some restaurants, especially those on the smaller side, the bump to the orange tier doesn't do all that much. Some are still unable to accommodate more customers because health guidelines require keeping tables 8 feet apart. A local restaurant owner shares what he thinks would truly help get more customers in the door.
The biggest change that would really help restaurants recover quicker, again, is allowing big parties to sit at one table because that's what the customers want, and also reducing the space in between tables.
Bakari has been consistently crowded since the city allowed the restaurant to reopen. So Cronfley is frustrated he cannot fit more customers inside. He hopes to see LA ease restrictions for other styles of seating, like bar seating, in the months to come.
Keck School of Medicine will begin a year-long study, surveying students and staff to see how COVID-19 and vaccines have affected the USC community. The study will survey 8,000 students, staff, and faculty over the course of a year. The purpose is to observe attitudes and behaviors related to COVID-19 and vaccines. Participants will receive up to $150 in e-gift cards for their contributions, depending on the extent of their participation. One of the study leaders talked about the project.
The design of this study is to try to get a series of snapshots of what's happening with the virus, its infection rate in our community, and as the whole community gets vaccinated, how well those vaccinations will stop the virus in its tracks. But we also hope that students would get involved because this is it's a Trojan effort. We want to be able to do well and participate in this research so we can improve our own prospects for getting over this pandemic.
Project staff will be in the field at Keck Medicine, recruiting participants for the study tomorrow.
USC researchers have released a new study that shows COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted working-age Latino immigrants. According to the study, Hispanic immigrants of working age are 11 times more likely to die of COVID-19 than US-born men and women who are not Hispanic. And the most common group of those who died were foreign-born Latino males age 65 plus with a high school education. A Keck professor explains the goal of the study.
Your first step can be just identifying, where the disparities exist, who is most impacted. But it doesn't stop there. Then you have to say, well, why? Why did the disparities come about? What were the reasons, and importantly, what can we intervene on to improve public health and to really reduce disparate impacts of many diseases, but particularly right now, most prominently is COVID-19.
Researchers were surprised to see a much higher rate of disparity when it comes to COVID mortality rates. The study aims to identify where the public health system can improve.
Growing up trans and non-binary, Kaufman student Zachary Torres realized many spaces were not created for people outside of the binary. So they created Continuum Community, an organization that provides educational resources for a diverse group of individuals to create more conversation about gender inclusivity. Torres added that Continuum Community has done a YouTube series called Beyond the Binary, where they interviewed professors, dancers, and dance teachers who are a part of this community and pose questions such as, how do we teach binary repertoire from a lens of gender equity?
Even a school like USC Kaufman, which is very focused and very driven to be accepting of all identities, still had a lot of work to do and still does have a lot of work to do. These conversations may just be arising for some people, but they've been around a long time and they're getting louder and louder and louder. So you either hop on board and grow with us and we all learn together, or you get left behind. I always say our slogan is join the continuum. Don't get left behind, join the continuum.
You can find more information about Continuum Community on YouTube and Instagram, or by visiting their website, www.continuumcommunity.com.
The new voter law in Georgia continues to spark controversy. I'm Kimia, Rahbar, reporting from Los Angeles. Large companies and vocal activists who are publicly denouncing the law could potentially pose a threat to the state's economy. In Atlanta, Coca-Cola, Delta, and the MLB are some of the few entities challenging the law civil rights activists say is unlawfully restricting people from voting. One activist says these organizations need to denounce the law in a way that does not stifle the state's cash flow.
What some activists are requesting is that businesses leave Georgia. So Major League Baseball has moved the All-Star game, and there's a push to get other businesses to move to have less, filmings. Georgia is a big place for TV filming. Walking Dead is filmed there. So there is this push to get those individuals to move their businesses. But at the end of the day, the people that are harmed are the people in Georgia who would have had jobs but for those businesses. So we'd like these businesses to stay within Georgia, but also stand with the people of Georgia and use whatever influence they have as donors, as constituents, as business leaders to say, this is not okay.
As more states try to enact similar voting laws, activists are pushing for a federal law that could help end the history of voter suppression in America.
Welcome to Gone Viral, our new segment where we highlight USC students making it big on social media.
This week, we have Victoria Hammett, a USC senior who uses TikTok to speak out on social issues. Let's check out one of her TikToks.
Even with the vaccine, you can still carry COVID and spread it. Take the vaccine, but you can still get COVID and carry it. So, what exactly is the point of the vaccine?
Hey Ella, I'm so glad that you asked. As political content creators, it's typically our job to research and fully understand these topics before talking about them, but I understand that you struggle with this, so I've done the research for you. The vaccines aim to reduce the severity of the disease. This way, if you do get COVID-19, you are not hospitalized and you do not die. And as you can see, Pfizer has proven to decrease severity by 95% and reduce the risk of hospitalization by 100%. This means that ideally, if everyone is vaccinated, no one will die and hospitals will not be overrun. Additionally, since I made that video, further research has actually supported the idea that vaccines can reduce transmission, saying that vaccines are actually about 90% effective in blocking coronavirus infections at all. Now, it is important to note that 90% is not 100%. So yes, if you're vaccinated and you want to be considerate to those who have not been vaccinated, yes, I would recommend wearing a mask. Now that you have this information, I trust that you will duet this video, share it with your followers, and encourage them to get vaccinated so we can return to life as normal.
Dang, Victoria, did you ever think that video on vaccines could amass over 1.5 million likes on the platform?
I really was not expecting that. I, posted that video thinking that it would perform just like my other videos do. And I was pleasantly surprised at the results. It seems like a lot of people want to hear, correct information about vaccines, which is good. Politics and social justice issues are always things that I've been passionate about in my personal life. And during the pandemic, I became really active on TikTok, posting about different things, just story times and makeup tips and things of that nature. And then I realized that TikTok could be a really, really good and useful platform to share these ideas about social justice and to correct the rampant amount of misinformation on the internet.
Man, I couldn't imagine balancing all that, but it seems like you're doing it quite gracefully, Victoria. Thanks so much for joining us today. And that's it for Gone Viral.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to April, Trojan fans. I'm Rachel Grode reporting from downtown LA. Former USC quarterback Sam Darnold was traded today to the Carolina Panthers. In return, the Jets will receive a 6th-round pick in this year's draft, as well as a 2nd and 4th-round pick in the 2022 draft. Darnold has had an up-and-down career since he was drafted 3rd overall by the Jets in 2018. Shoulder and foot sprains caused him to miss 7 games in the last 2 seasons. Last year, he completed under 60% of his passes and threw 9 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. But some believe Darnold's struggles were simply a product of his situation. Our own Will Camardella offered his thoughts on Darnold's outlook moving forward.
Sam Darnold did not play very well in New York with 39 career interceptions in 3 seasons. However, he did not have much help either. The offense just didn't produce, and he was coached his last 2 years by Adam Gase, who is no longer in the league. He now moves to Carolina with an exciting staff led by Matt Rule and Joe Brady, and will have star running back Christian McCaffrey playing behind him. He has all the tools to show he can be Carolina's answer at quarterback, but he must prove he has a short memory from his time in New York, can be more consistent in making highlight plays, and can be a fast learner learning a brand new system.
In more football news, USC's departing cornerback Elijah Griffin got his own pro day this morning after missing the team's pro day last month due to a positive COVID test. Griffin tested slightly below average for his position across the athletic drills, running a 4.53 40-yard dash, a 7.04 3-cone, and posing a 34-inch vertical jump. Defensive lineman Marlon Tuipulotu redid some of his drills today since he had a strained hamstring last month. For more sports, let's toss it over to Bianca.
The Stanford Cardinal are now NCAA Division I women's basketball champions after defeating fellow USC rival Arizona Sunday night. The number 1 seeded Cardinal narrowly edged the Wildcats 54-53 after Arizona guard Ari McDonald missed a buzzer beater to win the game. The All-Pac-12 matchup was a boon for the conference and confirmed it would have its first women's champion since Stanford last won in 1992. Stanford head coach Tara Vanderveer spoke after the game about how her team's Pac-12 slate prepared them for this moment.
I'm really excited to take the trophy back to the Pac-12. And also I want to thank the Pac-12 coaches and every university in the Pac-12 for the commitment to women's basketball, Pac-12 networks, and the great coaches that we have in our league got us ready for this moment.
Stanford head coach Tara Vanderveer has been with the Cardinal since 1985. This victory ends the longest championship gap for any Division I head coach of any sport before. And now Gonzaga has the chance to do something very similar tonight. The West Coast Conference hasn't won a championship since 1956, Rachel. That's insane. So I'm so excited to see them play. What do you think is going to go on tonight?
I'm excited to watch this game, Bianca. I think that there's been so much momentum with March Madness this year. And obviously I have a bit of a sour spot towards Gonzaga for taking us out of the running. So I'd really like to see a Baylor win tonight. That's all we have for sports today. Let's toss it over to news.
Good evening, Trojans. I'm Jennifer Kim, back with Trojans Around the Globe. Today, we meet Georgia McCurgan, who spent last semester back home in London before moving to Hawaii for a better school life balance.
You'd wake up at 9 a.m. or something, and then you would feel like you couldn't be productive till 4 because that's when your classes started. So the whole beginning part of the day was just it was almost backwards. It was you did all your homework in the morning and then went to class in the evening. Definitely took some major adjusting. I spent last semester back in the UK and just found that whole time change like so difficult to do. So this semester I was just like, you know what, Hawaii kind of feels like a second home for me. And luckily we were able to get out here, which so fortunate to be able to do.
While Georgia was in London, she was able to visit her relatives in Edinburgh, Scotland, before coming to Hawaii. Until we are back on campus, Georgia and other Trojans around the globe are making adjustments to make the most of their school year. Tune in next week for our next episode.
While human hugs were restricted this past year, dog cuddles were limitless. But our furry companions face their own challenges brought on by the pandemic. Annenberg Media's Maddie Gannon has the story.
Stumpy is a natural-born poser. When he's not in front of the camera, he loves long walks and wagging his namesake. Like so many dogs, Stumpy was adopted during COVID.
One of the kind of random side bonuses of COVID was that so many people adopted dogs. Shelters around LA were emptied out, and rescue groups couldn't keep up with all the requests for adoptions.
But unlike so many of these dogs, Stumpy was adopted by somebody who really knows what he's doing. Aaron Hill owns a dog service business called Pets in the City, LA. He walks, trains, and boards dogs in his own home.
For me, what turned out to be a positive is that once they got all these dogs, they realized they had no idea what they were doing training-wise. And so I've never been busier with training. Come.
Hill says puppies born and raised during COVID face new social problems. Masks make them less comfortable around new people, and being stuck inside means they aren't used to interacting with other dogs.
Obviously, during COVID, you couldn't really go out in public and just walk up to strangers and say, hey, could you pet my dog?
So he got creative. He had people inside his COVID bubble come over to interact with the dogs to expose them to strangers. To help with the comfort around other dogs, his backyard served as an impromptu dog park. But as the vaccine rollout continues and the world starts to open back up, Hill says there's a new challenge for dogs on the horizon: separation anxiety.
Suddenly, these dogs are going to go from having their parents there all day, every day, to maybe gone 10 hours a day, 5 days a week or more. So there is going to be a pretty big adjustment for them.
Hill and his wife, Lee Oblinger, are bracing for this themselves. Along with Stumpy, they own 2 more dogs.
We have some codependency issues going on here. That's a huge thing that we're actually trying to start working on. Like, I'm trying to leave every day for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, so that I can not be as dependent on my dogs and that they can not be as anxious.
The approach of starting to incrementally leave dogs alone is exactly what Hill is recommending his clients do. He hopes it prepares the dogs and the humans for more time apart. For Annenberg Media, I'm Maddie Gannon in Los Angeles.
What a unique challenge that Aaron has had to face, Lauren, but honestly, it makes total sense. My dogs acted very similarly, and my parents let us know that once we went back to school, they definitely were a little off because they weren't used to not having as much attention, love, cuddles, and walks all the time.
You know, I totally understand what you mean. My aunt recently adopted a dog that was abandoned during the pandemic and is having these same exact issues. I should totally tell her about this story. You know, it's really great that these resources and trainers are out there for the people who need them.
I couldn't agree more. That's all for Annenberg TV News. Thanks so much for watching.
From everyone at Annenberg Media, have a great night.